what happened? What happened on this day? Over the years, of course, we know it all begins with the sin of the Miraglim, the spies that were, Moshe Rabbeinu sent after the request of the people. They wanted to go and spy out the land of Israel, and then they, instead of reporting what was actually there, they reported bad things about Israel, and that began the, turning this day into a day of mourning. Throughout all of history, the biggest tragedies that have happened to Am Yisrael have happened during this day, and it's not a coincidence. You have the destruction of the first Bet HaMikdash, where literally millions upon millions of people were murdered in cold blood. Happened on Tisha B'Av in the first Bet HaMikdash destruction. The second Bet HaMikdash destruction happened also on Tisha B'Av. Spanish Inquisition, Tisha B'Av. Major key days during the Holocaust, also Tisha B'Av. Different tragedies have happened on Tisha B'Av, and in fact, one of the things that we see in the Torah is that this has been really not just a common day where disaster strikes on that day, but there are, before that disaster strikes, there's a certain behavior. There's a certain thing that happens. There's a certain thing that we do that lead HaShem to, in essence, use this as the solution. Now, in the world of today, where people think that, a YouTube subscribers means the more YouTube subscribers you have, the more righteous you are and the smarter you are, many people are falling into the trap of different people that call themselves rabbis and tell you all types of things like God needs you and all other forms of heresy. A recent shiur by Rav Meir Eliyahu, one of the Geonim in our generation, he brought some of the words of the sages that are said everywhere, but he put it in a really good perspective in Parashat Devarim, and he says, look at how HaShem brought us the salvation in the past, and then you'll understand some of the ways of HaShem. And he'll also address this issue. Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to be the Mashiach. He did not want to be the Redeemer. He didn't have the confidence in himself that he is fit for this job. And more than anything else, he says, I'm a terrible speaker. He has a speech impediment. He was both a stutterer and a stammer. Part of it was because of him putting the coal in his mouth when he was a little boy, with that whole event that happened where he was going to grab the crown, the golden crown of Paro, but the angel was sent to move his hand to grab the coals, and as a reflex, he put his hand in his mouth, but there was still a piece of coal in his hand, and he burned his tongue. So Moshe Rabbeinu, the ultimate redeemer, did not want to be a redeemer. Part of it was because he had a speech impediment. And of course, we see in Parashat Devarim, Ele Advarim, he says all of these things, meaning that Moshe Rabbeinu became the ultimate speaker. Why did Hashem choose Moshe Rabbeinu as the speaker to Am Yisrael, to teach us the Torah, to bring us all of the laws, when he's in essence a terrible speaker and not quite fit according to his resume for the job? In order to make sure that you realize that it's not somebody that thinks that they are fit, but rather who Hashem picks. Mostly because if Hashem would have brought a good speaker, let's say like Korach, the politician, Korach was a fantastic speaker. Korach convinced 250 of the biggest rabbis in the world to go against Moshe Rabbeinu. He was not only wealthy, he was a very charismatic person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, I'm not going to bring you a charismatic person. I'm going to give you someone with a speech impediment, so you don't ever say that Moshe Rabbeinu convinced millions of people to follow God. But rather, the words themselves, the events themselves, God himself was what was the convincing part. And so, first, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows us that the salvation does not come from what makes sense. Secondly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose the Jewish people But he didn't choose the Jewish people when they were at their height, when they were, the 12 tribes fighting warriors against all of the nations, when the wars of the 12 tribes against the Canaanite nations, they were literally destroying giants as if they were little cockroaches. No, Hashem didn't choose them then. He chose them when they were in Egypt, slaves, being defiled, being literally murdered, being destroyed on a daily basis, where Paro was murdering 300 babies every single day just to take their blood and bathe in it, because his necromancers told him that the blood of the Jewish kids is good for the skin disease that he had. So these very same people that had their kids murdered left and right, either in the morning for the bath of Paro, or because they didn't reach their quota and therefore they put their kids in there to replace the stones, all types of horrific things that happened to the Jewish people. They became slaves that worse than any other people in history, to the point where they no longer saw themselves as anything but slaves. So when Moshe Rabbeinu came to redeem them, they didn't understand, what is he talking about? Us being redeemed, us not being slaves, it didn't make any sense. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose us as slaves. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu choose us as slaves and not when we were doing really well? Very simple. To make sure that we know forever and more that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not need us. Does not need us. He is the one that lifted us up from nothing. We were nothing. We were zero. We were below zero. We were slaves. We were murdered. Literally tortured. Shlomit Bat Divri was raped by one of these Egyptians. Horrible things happened to Am Yisrael in Egypt. Countless people were killed. That's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, you're my chosen people. So to make sure that you never say, oh, they were really, really good, they were amazing, they were righteous, they were perfect, they were the leaders, and then Hashem chose them, so maybe he needs them because they're so good. No, Dafka, he chose them when they were slaves and lifted them up from the ground, from dirt, in order for us to remember 3,334 years later that Hashem does not need us. So if some old man with a really long white beard pretending to be a philosopher / rabbi tells you God needs you, go bring him this. And this is mentioned in countless places in the Midrash, in the Gemara, by Chazal. It's literally all over the place. A person needs to know these things. Why? Because the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says in the before Mashiach comes, we are going to reach the 50th level of Tum'ah. What's the 50th level of Tum'ah? Heresy. Heresy is the 50th level of Tum'ah, meaning heresy is going to be everywhere. People are going to distort the Torah. Some of them with beards, some of them without beards, some of them with podcasts and a bunch of questionable guests, some of them with YouTube channels, some of them with big congregations in rich neighborhoods. All types of heretics are going to come. And it's important for a person to know that they are either going to be a victim as a result of their own ignorance, or they're going to prosper as a result of their own acquiring of knowledge. So here we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need us, he chose us, but then he almost destroyed us. Why? Why almost destroy us? What happened? What happened that this had to happen? Now, we know that in the first Bet HaMikdash, Am Yisrael made the 3 cardinal sins. Immorality, which includes wasting seed, LGBTQ, intermarriage, these types of things, as well as murder and idolatry. Now, in the second Bet HaMikdash, many people like to quote that Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred, as the reason for the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash, but that's because either they are, being lenient on the crowd, because the crowd is full of ignorant people that don't understand anything more than just simply not liking other people, or they have not learned Gemara. Because the Gemara says that Sinat Chinam was not kepshuto, like as simple as you understand it, that you just didn't like anybody else. That wasn't exactly like you described them. You weren't. It wasn't because Jews turned into lehavdil, into a Hitler or something like that. Didn't like anybody that wasn't fit his description, that he himself didn't fit. No. Sinat Chinam, Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshitz, Alav Shalom, says Sinat Chinam is when Am Yisrael stopped rebuking. Why? Because as the Gemara in Masechet Chagigah says, Kadosh Baruch Hu said to the prophet Jeremiah, go check all of the Batei Knesset, go check all of the Bet Midrash. If there's anybody out there that's rebuking, I won't destroy the Bet Mikdash, because at least if there's somebody that's rebuking, somebody that's telling people the truth, there's a way for people to come back to good. But if no one's rebuking, then I have to rebuke. And the way that Hashem rebukes is with destruction. So that was one form of Sinat Chinam. But the Gemara in Masechet Yomah, and also in Masechet Shabbat, says that there were certainly other sins as a result of lack of rebuke. That means that people started violating Shabbat and no one would tell them anything about it. People started doing all types of immoral things and no one said anything about it. So the Sinat Chinam was not that was the only sin. It was the fact that this particular sin of lack of rebuke is, in essence, was the ultimate sin that allowed all of these other sins to continue.